Hey guys, my name is Sergey Gusev. Welcome to my channel. Today I want to show how to draw a portrait with pastels on paper. I will show how to start, continue, how to finish, how to work on the details. So let's get started. I start off with a quick sketch on paper and I use a graphite pencil. I think it's an HB graphite pencil. It's not very soft. And I start from the big shapes and I set up the big proportions. Um, I don't draw any detail right now. We'll have enough time to draw later. So the first thing I make is a quick sketch. And I recommend to draw the main things. So I suggest to draw the eye sockets instead of the eyes in the beginning. Don't make a lot of details. Just try to draw the big shapes, the big silhouettes. I'm using drawing paper. It's not paper for pastel. It is drawing paper because it has a very smooth texture. It's not so textured as special pastel paper, but it's a little bit more difficult to draw on this paper. So if you're a beginner, I would suggest to buy just paper for pastels, which has a texture. It's more comfortable to draw with pastels because they're very soft. When you make this sketch, I suggest to always check the proportions. You can literally measure the proportions and always compare them to the original ones. Sometimes I suggest to print out the image you're working on, the original photograph, for example. And when you have it next to your drawing, it's much easier to see the mistakes if you make any of them. And by the way, if you see any mistake, it's much better to correct it right away. So don't wait. If you see anything you can correct, just do it immediately. I don't really like to draw shadows in the beginning. I mean, when I make this kind of really quick sketch, I don't draw shadows, but as I drew this portrait especially for the video, and I thought you might be interested um, in a longer drawing. I make the shadows, just the very few ones, and not too dark because I will draw with pastels over them, and pastels. It's a little bit difficult to draw with pastels over graphite, so don't shade too much. And you can see that when I start making shadows, we can see the volume of the head much better. So it's not flat, it's a little bit more volumetric right now because we have lights and shadows. I don't suggest to use very soft graphite pencil because they can make your paper a little bit too dark or even dirty, and it's better to keep it clean. And by the way, I'm using white paper, but you can buy any other color. It can be light gray, for example, which is very nice for pastels. And you know, guys, it's better, in my opinion, to have um, toned paper. So not pure white, but something darker, because it's much better to see the skin tones when you're drawing with pastels. I continue to draw to work on the face, and I add more details. I'm drawing an eye. And by the way, when you draw an eye, remember about its shape. It's basically a sphere. So remember to show it. It's always better to draw both eyes at the same time. Make sure you draw them on the right places. It's much better to spend more time right now and make a good drawing than make a lot of mistakes and try to fix them while working with pastels. It's gonna be much more difficult. So uh, if you feel better uh, to have a good underdrawing, just spend more time and make a fine drawing, and you will notice it's really nice and easy to draw with pastels when you have a really well done sketch. I think you should spend at least 30 minutes or more to make this underdrawing. Okay, let's say it's finished and it's time to draw with pastels. I have pastel pencils, and I start by shading in the dark spots. For example, the core shadow of the head. Um, well, of course, if you look at the original picture, you can notice that it's not black. It's not even too dark. But I make it dark in the beginning, and I will add light tones, reflections later on. But right now, it's much better to outline all the shadows. So you can do it with one color, maybe not black. And I'm using carbon black pencil. It's not charcoal, it's not so dark, it's not pure black. But anyways, if you don't want to use black or charcoal, you can use, for example, dark brown or sepia or anything like that. And after that, I got cadmium red in my hands and cadmium lemon. And I like to start with the brighter colors. And so right now I'm working on the skin tones. And um, I think it's better to start from the dark spots, from the shadows, but also when you start working on the semitones, it's better to begin from the darkest of them. So for example, in this drawing, the lightest spot is the forehead, and it's better to draw it a little bit later when you have when you draw the other part, the darkest tones, the semitones, and then you can start working on the forehead because it's much lighter than the cheeks, for example. Um, so guys, you can see I'm using really bright colors right now. Cadmium red, cadmium lemon, blue, and right now it looks a little bit abstract, so it doesn't look like a forehead, for example. But I don't care a lot. I'm looking for the nice colors, and right now I'm smoothing them out, and I get a nice cold and warm at the same time tone. And then I lighten it up, and it looks much better. It looks it looks more like a forehead right now. So remember that in the beginning you can make it rougher, you can make it very quick, and look for the nice skin tones. You can always correct the colors, so don't worry. I was asked a few times about the pencils I'm using in my videos, and I don't want to advertise any of them, any brand. And I tried many brands, and I can say you that they're all fine. They're not bad, and some of the pencils are softer, some of the pencils are harder, but they're all fine. And I use a few brands, and mostly I use Devon pencils because they're softer than the other ones I tried, and I like it better. But if you have any other brand you personally like, you can use it, no problem. It should be really comfortable for you to draw. So if you don't like any brand and you have your favorite one, just go ahead and use it. Remember that it's always better to smooth the strokes out. Uh, so I'm using this blending stamp time by time. Well, in my videos or when I'm teaching, I always tell my students about the necessity to remember about the light source. It's very important to understand where it is, and usually the light comes from above. So we have the strongest lights on the forehead, for example, on the cheekbones, and the chin, for example, it's darker than the forehead because it's further away from the light source. So when you're drawing, try to remember, try to understand where the light source is and which parts of the head are lighter and which parts are darker. It's very important for the realistic drawing and painting. I like to work um, on the details, um, just spend some time working on one detail and then spend time and correct the other detail. I don't want to finish them right away. Uh, I come back and correct the tones, the colors. And right now I'm working on the eye, and I'm shading in the pupil of the eye with the with my charcoal pencil. So remember that actually the darkest part of the head is the pupils of the eyes because they're almost pure black and you can draw them simply with charcoal. And you can note then that the shadows uh, look much lighter right now because I added other colors like ochre yellow or Venetian red to make them lighter. And remember that shadows have reflections, so you can't make it simply black or just simply dark. Shadows always have reflections from the lights. Also remember that the lights are usually colder than the shadows. So try to use colder colors like uh, kind of bluish colors, reddish, titanium white, and so on for the skin tones and the lights. And the shadows are usually a little bit darker than the lights and warmer. So uh, you can use sepia, for example, dark brown, sometimes charcoal or carbon black. And just remember about this basic rule that if you have cold lights, you have warm shadows. If you have warm lights, you have cold shadows. Just remember about that when you're painting or drawing with pastels. It's very important. Well, generally, a painting looks much better when you combine cold tints and warm tints. So if everything is cold, it looks a little bit strange, a little bit wrong. If everything is warm, it's also wrong. So just remember that the lights and the highlights are colder and the semitones are warmer, the shadows are warmer. And also remember that the shadows, they usually get cold reflections from the cold lights around. So it's a little bit difficult to understand maybe, but if you train, if you draw, if you paint, if you try to notice these things, you will see them, of course. So just remember to pay more attention to it. And right now I'm working on the eyes with the titanium white. I add more light into the sclera and into the iris, just working on the volume of the eye. And when working on the eyes, as I mentioned, remember that it's basically a sphere, and the sphere is turned towards or away from the light source. So the part of the eyes which is turning away from the light source, it's dark and it's usually in a shadow. And the other part which is turned to the light source is lighter, colder, and therefore the eye looks volumetric. So it's not flat, it has a volume. And you can see it in this portrait too. So don't make the sclera simply white. And when you're working on the eyelids, remember that they have a thickness. And the thickness of the upper lid usually is in the shadow, and the thickness of the lower lid is in the light. So actually, when you're drawing or painting, you should remember some rules, some basic things, and uh, sometimes it's difficult to see them because they're so small, but if you know that they exist, you will see them. Well, actually, I'm using very few colors for this drawing, and I like to use a kind of limited palette. I don't think we need a lot of colors, and I think that if you're a beginner, it's a good experience to try a limited palette because it's more simple when you have a few colors than when you have really a lot and you don't know how to use them. So try to get maybe around 10 colors and mix them up, and you will see that you can actually get almost any color you need just by mixing the ones you have. And remember also that when you're working on the backgrounds, remember that, or for example, on the hair, remember to correct the shape of the head, the silhouette of the head. So when you're working on the hair, just don't forget that it is a part of the head, it's a part of the portrait, and it is also very important. And right now I'm working with my ochre yellow pencil on the hair. Remember that the hair has lights and shadows, so it's not flat, it has a volume as well, and some parts are dark and warm, and some parts are light and colder because they get in the strong light, for example. And I've got my dark brown pencil to work on the semitones of the hair, and I'm darkening them down a little bit. Yeah, you can also use a brush to smooth the strokes out. Mm, I like to use it. It's very simple and very helpful, especially when I work on really small details. And right now I'm working on the necklace, just correcting the shape. I'm working with burnt carmine with ultramarine, working on the shadow from the necklace and making the highlights with the titanium white pencil. Well, I want to remind you that it's better to keep your pencils sharp throughout the whole process. It's much better and more comfortable to draw with sharp pencils, especially when working on the details. And there are a lot of details in portraits. So when working on the necklace, remember that it's a small detail, it's not a part of the face or the head, and I don't recommend to make it really finished. And just remember to keep the main accents, the contrasts around the head. Otherwise, the necklace can attract too much attention. Just remember it's a tiny detail. So when working on the necklace, I care mostly for the silhouette and the shape. I don't I don't make it very detailed. And remember that the necklace um, has a volume and has lights and shadows, and there is a reflection in the shadow. And because the necklace is really close to the red uh, t-shirt, it has a red reflection, a reddish reflection, which I made with cadmium red. And right now I'm adding a few highlights on the necklace. And it's better to have sharp pencils for that. Well, at the end of the drawing, remember to check the proportions and the big things, the big silhouettes. If you see any mistake, try to adjust it right away. And right now I'm making the shadows on the neck. Also remember to clean up the lights at the end and make sure that the forehead is lighter than the other parts. You can put the highlights in the irises, and right now I'm correcting the shape of the nose a little bit. I'm making final touch-ups here and there. So guys, you can work um, more and make your drawing more detailed and better finished, for example, but it's a little bit difficult to film and draw at the same time, so maybe I will work a little bit more without the camera. I think mostly it's done. I made what I wanted, and I hope this quick lesson was helpful and you got some new ideas or you were inspired to take your pencils and draw with me. And yeah, right now I'm making some final touch-ups and I add a reflection to the shadow of the nose with my ochre yellow pencil. Okay, I think that's it, and mostly it's finished. I hope you like this lesson. Remember to subscribe to my channel. I promise to make new videos, uh, new paintings and drawings are coming really soon. Don't forget to comment on the video. I will try to answer all your questions. I will do my best. You can visit my webpage and find some other tutorials. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. Okay guys, I wish you good luck with your drawings and paintings. See you in my next tutorials. Bye bye.